got down to like 30%. I don't know what words just came out of my mouth. It's really late when I'm painting this, so I apologize. So we're going to go to about 30% opacity, and I'm going to lightly shade the centers. And in this case, shade is good, not a bad thing. It's not a light read. We're not reading, we're painting. Oh dear. Hello friend, welcome back to my channel. It's Tim here. I hope you're doing well. So gardens are one of my absolute favorite things to paint, so I am so excited to create this with you. I invite you to pull up a canvas and paint alongside me as I guide you through the steps to create this cute garden painting. If you decide to recreate this painting, I would absolutely love to see it, so please tag me at TimStarStudio if you're on Instagram. Upcoming here are the hex codes that you will need to paint alongside me, along with the brushes that you will need. The first steps of this tutorial will be to take a screenshot of our trace layer and trace over it in a blank layer for yourself to follow along with. If you have any questions, please let me know below, and if you need to take a break or pause at any time, please do so. And without further ado, let's begin. All right, so getting into the tutorial. So we're gonna take our trace layer and we're gonna turn it to like, not 0%. Actually, just kidding, we're gonna do something different. So we are going to add a new layer. I'm going to leave our trace layer on brighter just a little bit. That way when we're working with the trees, we can still see it a little bit. But we are going to take this 5th color in the first row, this goldish white color with a soft airbrush, about 100% size or so. And we're gonna lay just a little stripe of color here for the sky. And then I'm gonna take Gaussian blur and we're gonna blur it out to about 20% or so. I'm going to add a new layer and we're going to start our trees. So switching over to the water pen, we're going to take the 4th color in the first row and start filling in the bases for our trees. This will create a really nice solid background for them to sit on. I'm going to fill in this middle one. We're going to fill in this one right here. I'm going to take this 1st color in the 2nd row. We're going to fill in this one. Just staying within the outline. Then I'm going to take this dark green, that is the 2nd color in the 1st row. We're going to fill in these little bushes. And I know it's not here in the outline, but I actually want to add some bushes over here. Feel free to do so if you want to, but you don't have to. I'm going to fill in some dark green here, here. Let's take this 1st green in the 2nd row. We're going to put it here as well, and right here. Actually, we're going to get squirrely today already. I'm going to take this darkest green. We're going to stick that right here, and right, a little bit right there, and right here. I think that's what I want. Okay. So next we're going to start with the top of the tree color. So I'm going to take this 3rd green, that is the 3rd color in the 1st row. And we're going to fill in the top part of the tree. Really just putting it kind of in a sad face. Kind of looks like a gumdrop. I always think about food when I'm painting really late at night, and we're going to fill in just the tops of the trees here. I think I'm going to put just a little bit of this color too, just on the top of this bush. Okay. We're going to take this 6th green, that is the 6th color in the 1st row. This is where the majority of our highlights are going to be, and we're going to place it on the right side and the top of this tree right here, and a little bit up here. And we're going to start blending it out. So I'm going to zoom up here. I'm going to turn our trace layer down now, turn it to like 25% or so. We're going to switch over to the blending tool with the damp brush, about 5% size. Let's go to about 65% or so opacity to blend with. And we're going to lightly, with circular scrubbing motions, blend this out. We want to create just a little bit of texture, but layering these colors like this will create this really pretty ombre effect, which will look really good and create some texture that we'll need for later, which will be really cool. Are you guys having a good summer right now? It has been really hot and really rainy here in Ohio again, which has been kind of annoying because I feel like we're still waiting on summer, but it just kind of is what it is. Ohio weather is really crazy. Been having a lot of tornadic and a lot of storm activity recently. Seems like it's all over the place. The quote from Twilight, you're talking to me about the weather, just went through my head for any of you Twilight fans out there. And in this area, we're kind of just blending. We don't want to blend all of the color variations away. We're just kind of creating like a round shape for each of these. And if you want to, you can get rid of the background layer, the trace layer, just so you can see it a little bit better. But if you kind of go in bigger scrubbing motions too, you can kind of drag some of this color below and really create some really pretty color blends. So something I wanted to show you here. So when you get up to the sky color, what I would do, I would lightly blend from the sky into the tree and kind of blend the sky and the tree together. That way we get a little bit of that highlight color into the tree as well, which is a really cool little transparency effect that I love to use and utilize. Just continuing to blend these out. This is my third attempt painting this picture because I started painting with no plan the first time and was like, ooh, nope, can't do that. So I realized really quickly I have to have some sort of final plan. That's just how I work best. If I know what I'm painting, it will turn out fine. But if I just kind of wing it, it'll look like I winged it, and that is not what I want. So that's creating some really nice textures in there already. I used to be really afraid of texture in my painting. I used to like everything really smoothed out, nothing to have any sort of like hardness or texture. And now I am all about it. I love it so much. So when you get everything blended together, what I'm going to do, we're going to shrink the size just a little bit to 4%. And I'm kind of going to go just back and forth, scrubbing motions just to kind of create a little bit more texture in each bush. If you have any questions below too, just let me know. There's going to be a lot of really repetitive areas. Unfortunately, there's just no way to avoid it, but I will try my best to get us through the worst of it with our sanity still intact or semi-intact. Me sane. That's funny. Tell another one, Tim. Okay, so when you're happy with the amount of texture that you have, I'm going to, actually we're going to turn our trace layer back on just a little bit so I can still kind of keep that in mind. And then what I'm going to do, so we're going to create a new layer, and then using soft light, we're going to switch over to black. I'm going to take the soft airbrush, go down to like 30%. I don't know what words just came out of my mouth. It's really late when I'm painting this, so I apologize. So we're going to go to about 30% opacity, and I'm going to lightly shade the centers. And in this case, shade is good, not a bad thing. It's not a light read. We're not reading, we're painting. Oh dear. I feel bad for you guys watching. listening to me ramble to myself. I am too much. Okay, so when you get through that, so once we have shaded the middles of each of these, I'm going to turn this down just a little bit, like 60% or so. We're going to take the damp brush, about 5-6% size or so, about 55% opacity, and we're going to lightly scrub that out just a little bit. Just kind of blending that in with the texture we created before. And this will create some really nice shadows in there. My allergies have been driving me crazy the last couple of days. What about you guys? This is always the time of year that, and like sometimes winter can kind of be bad too, but okay. So once you have the shadows blended out to your liking, and we want to leave just a little bit of texture, but just softening it all up. So we're going to create a new layer. I'm going to go back to the damp brush. Let's go to like 3% size, like 85% or so opacity. And then I'm going to start color dropping. So we've got some new colors in our palette, and we're going to define each one of our new bushes. Just kind of creating the light impression that there are leaves. And I'm kind of just going in with little dots. You don't want anything like straight back and forth. You kind of want to do like little boomerang shapes, like little sad faces. So we're doing more little sad face highlights on our happy little trees. It's the little things, right? So I'm going to color drop this. We're going to highlight just the top here. I'm going to take this color right here. We're going to start defining our edges just a little bit. And this will really help to create a really dimensional looking tree in our piece, just by color dropping different colors that we have created through different overlays and using our original palette. And then I'm going to repeat the same process for the rest of the trees as well. That way we've got these nice mid-tones hanging out in there. And we'll come back in and soften those up here in just a minute. Tappy, tappy, tap. And the reason I'm color dropping different areas too is like, if I try to color drop this color up here, put it down there, it's going to be too bright because not much of that light is going to be hitting down there. So that's why I'm grabbing some of these mid-tones in the middle of the bush, which is why I love doing soft light. Gives us like a little palette, like a little mini palette for each tree, which is really cool. When it comes to the top, you don't have to be like super careful, just kind of variegated in the shape of how it's gonna lay. I love these forest green colors. They're so pretty. Kind of just taking it and putting it everywhere. I love painting garden scenes. It's one of my absolute favorite things to paint. What's something that you guys love painting? If you have any ideas for future tutorials, preferably in the landscape genre of some sort, please let me know below. I would love to hear and get some new ideas. I've got a couple of tutorial ideas coming, so I'm super excited. I think I want to do another space one too, because I had a lot of fun with that. Okay, so once you get your trees stippled on there, I'm going to do about 4% size or so. And let's go to like 55, 56% opacity. Actually, that's too much. Never mind. We're going to go to like 7% size, 30% opacity. And we're going to lightly blend this out. Just being careful. We want to leave just a little bit of texture behind, but not too much. Just lightly blending that out. Kind of just merging all of the colors and textures together. I'm going to merge these two layers together. So in a new layer, I'm going to put this layer up underneath of the tree layer. And I'm going to have you fill in this entire bottom area with green. Just filling that in. If there are any weird light spots hanging out. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. Next, we're going to create another new layer. Only this new layer we're going to create above the tree layer. I'm going to take the same green as before, so we'll just color drop that. And we're going to put this, we're going to start sketching in the grass above. So we'll need just a little bit bigger. There we go. I kind of like how that bush is overhanging the grass just a little bit. So I'm just going to sharpen up that hill line and then this hill line right here. You need to use a slightly bigger brush too, definitely feel free to. Okay, so in a new layer, we're gonna turn this layer down to like 60% or so. We're gonna switch to this green, that is the 6th color in the first row. We're gonna lightly start laying down some highlight area. We're just gonna highlight the top part of each hill. And I'm going to drag some of the highlight down. So next, I'm going to switch over here just a little bit. We're going to highlight this hilltop just a little bit. I'm going to lightly, and you want to leave some of the undercolor. So you want to leave like or use a really light hand coming downwards just a little bit. We'll switch over here. Highlight that hill edge and just kind of tie those areas together just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take the blending brush, 7% size or so. We're going to lightly blend that out. You want to leave just a little bit of that texture underneath because it'll create a very realistic grass looking effect. So we're going to create a new layer. We're going to put that layer into soft light. And I'm going to pick the color black, do about 3% size, 48% or so opacity. And we're going to lightly just sketch in a little bit of detail, highlight, or low light, I mean. Just to create a little bit of dimension in this grass. And you're not going to want to take it all the way up the hill. We're just kind of creating some texture in here. Just kind of going back and forth, still making little sad faces. That's going to be like a thing. Every time I think about adding shadows, I just think about putting little sad faces in my painting, which makes me laugh. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to drag some of this color into this area. And you'll see in a little bit, we're going to add some highlight into the grass, but I don't want to do it quite yet because we're going to put some light rays in. So that'll be a bit later, but I'm going to take the blending brush with like 8% size. Let's do 30% opacity, and we're going to lightly blend it out. Okay, so in a new layer again, I'm going to create, we're going to put that in overlay. I'm going to pick this bright yellow-white color that we used for the background. We're going to turn this down just a little bit, still in the 3%, just smaller. Put that in like 40% size. And we're gonna highlight over top of the grass again, just lightly dragging that edge out just a little bit. Gonna highlight the tops of this one. Kind of dragging it down just a little bit. I'm gonna drag some of this highlight color down. Come back up with it, and then we're gonna highlight this one. Just so that way the color is kind of, it's continuous through the whole image. Okay, we're gonna take the blending brush again, and then just lightly blend that layer out. Now we've got some nice depth in our grass. So I'm going to turn this layer off just for a moment. We're going to do a copy canvas and paste. Okay, I'm going to turn this back on. I'm going to add another new layer. We're going to put that layer in overlay, or sorry, soft light. We're going to put that layer in soft light. Then we're going to switch to black. Damp brush again, about 4% size, 50% or so opacity. And we're going to add just a little bit of shadow on the undersides of our trees and our bushes. And you want to do like a cross hatching, kind of like just a back and forth scribbly motion. Squiggle squad unite. Make all the squiggles. Put that right over here. This area, I actually think I'm going to drag this up just a little bit. This area is going to be a little bit more shadowed. I'm going to put a little bit down here, a little bit. Let's put a little bit down here, a little bit down here, a little bit down here. Put some up on the corners of this side as well. So I'm going to make this bigger, like 5% size, leave the opacity. We're going to drag just a little bit more color down here, just at the base. Just a little bit, and kind of drag some of this where the fence is going to be, and then down here as well. And then we're going to lightly blend all of this new stuff out. Just softening it up just a little bit. We don't want to get rid of all of the texture. Then I'm going to blend this out. If there's any hard or weird edges, feel free to smooth them just a little bit. But we actually kind of want just a little bit of texture in these areas. I'm going to put a little bit right here too, just to kind of add a little bit more depth. Okay, I'm going to turn this layer down. We're going to turn it down to like 56% or so. I'm going to turn this off to see what it looks like. It's looking good. So I'm going to merge these two layers together. I'm going to turn that back on real quick. I think I'm going to turn this down just a little bit more though. Perfect. We're going to zoom up and we're going to start making our grass. And we're going to use the damp brush. Let's go down to like 2% size. Go to like 50% or so opacity, and you're going to create little flicking motions. Actually, let's go to like 45% opacity. Creating little flicking motions and dragging the color up. And through some of this too, if you want to do kind of like that same cross hatching motion, that'll quickly fill in texture, and you can go back in and add detail strokes. I'm going to finish this up here. And I'm going to repeat the same for the same 3 hills and up into the very front, which I'll get to in a little bit, but I'll meet you back here when you're ready. And kind of going back and forth like this will kind of speed the process up just a little bit. I know this area, grass is another one that is incredibly repetitive and tedious. So if there are easier ways to do it, I will try to help out as much as I can. And to really create some really realistic grass, like in these areas, you can kind of see I'm kind of going up and down, and then I'm dragging color between the dark area and the light area. That way I get some nice blends between. thought about a new art series I'd like to do, and I'd like to share like 3 or 4 minute videos of random painting tips. So if there are any painting tips you guys would like below for digital painting and Procreate specifically, please let me know below, and I can try to help out as best I can. Preferably ones that are related to the default library, and I'm trying to stick with brushes that are in the default library. That way they're easier to access. I may occasionally do a tutorial or two from like somebody's specific brush set, but I've been trying to keep them in the default family. That way they're accessible for everyone. Because there's some really good, there's some hidden gem brushes in the default library. So in here where there is a harder edge, we're gonna just kind of do that just to soften that up just a little bit. And I may go actually back and forth to kind of smooth it out. So if that happens and there's too much color, always feel free to lightly smooth areas out before going back to blending, because sometimes I know that's annoying. Now, when we get closer to the bottom, I'm going to make the strokes just a little bit bigger because the grass is closer, but we really just want to create some texture down here as well. Some of this area is going to get covered up, and we'll add some detail grass strokes towards the end, but just so that way there's some detail in here. We'll come back here just a little bit. I'm going to turn that off just so we can see it. If there's anything weird sticking out, which I don't like this line up right here, so we're going to soften that up just a little bit further. Let's see. That's looking pretty good, much better. Okay, so we're going to create a new layer. We're going to put that layer into soft light. We're going to take the layer opacity down to like 25%. We're going to switch over to the damp brush, 7% size, 55% or so opacity. And we're going to lay down just a little bit more shadow over top of the grass. I'm going to drag some of that shadow down here. And then we're going to lightly blend that out just a little bit. And I think the last highlight layer for this grass, we're going to put another new layer. We're going to put that layer in overlay this time. And let's go back to that light white green. That is the 5th color in the first row. Let's go to the damp brush, 4% size. Let's do like 80% opacity. Ooh. Nope, that's a little too bright. So we're going to turn this down just a little bit. We're going to lay down some highlight. We're going to kind of do what we did before, where we're kind of just lightly blending that down into the center, kind of letting the hills kind of naturally form in the background, which is fun to lay in a layer of overlay over soft light because you can create some really pretty shadows. We're going to drag that color down here. Then I'm going to take large size brush, like 11% size. Let's do like 25% or so opacity. And we're going to lightly blend away any hard edges. I kind of want to keep some of this texture though. We just really want to preserve some of the shape that highlight gave us in the grass. Okay, I'm going to turn that layer down just a little bit, like 23%. Actually, let's see what it looks like. Nope, way too bright. Let's keep that at like 23%, and we're going to create another new layer. And we have reached a painting break, friends, so if you need to pause and stretch or get something to drink, I'll be here waiting when you're ready to begin again. Okay, so we're going to create our fence. So we're going to switch over to the water pen. I'm going to take this dark brown color, that is the 5th color in the 2nd row, and we're going to start painting our fence rows. I'm using 12% size, 100% opacity. Then I'm going to take the 6th color in the second row, that lighter brown color. We're going to place it right on top of itself, like right next to it. And we're going to leave the dark color on the left-hand side over here. And just repeat that down the line. Then I'm going to grab this light taupey color. That is the first color in the third row. We're going to make our size just a little bit smaller. We're just going to highlight these first 3. Then I'm going to highlight this. We're going to highlight the gate. We're going to highlight the first, let's do the first 4 on that side. Okay, so I'm going to create another new layer. We're going to take this dark brown again. You guys are going to have this in your outline, but I'm going to add it here. We're going to add like a little post going across. Then I'm going to grab this middle color. I'm going to highlight the top part of this gate, the bottom of this. Highlight the top of that, top of that. Then take the highlight color, which is the first color in the third row again, and we're going to highlight the top of this as well. That right there. We have our gate. Nope. I like it better with. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna paint our little birdie. So going in with this pretty bright red color, this nice barn red, we're gonna fill in the outline for our bird. I'm gonna grab this gold. We're going to create his beak. Then I'm going to grab this 6th color in the second row again, and we're going to draw his little legs. And I actually did not make the post big enough. So if that should happen to you, let's get rid of his legs for a moment. We're going to move him down. Glad that happened, just in case that happens to you, and make him a little bit bigger. Perfect. Actually, I don't even think this one needs legs. So we're going to paint our... And you guys are going to have this color. I forgot to put the gray in here. So we're going to make a gray, and I'll be right back. Okay, so using these newly added colors, we're going to take the 3rd color in the 4th row, this grayish taupey color. I'm going to shrink that down to like 7% size, and we're going to fill in our stone outline. We're going to grab the 4th color in the 4th row, and we're going to create a little highlight underneath, which will give it a little bit of a 3D look. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to start creating our bushes. So in a new layer, we're going to take the first green, but it's the 2nd color in the 1st row. Make sure we're still in the water pen. We're going to fill in our outline, and it may help. We're going to turn the layer opacity of this up just a little bit so we can see it better. Just drag that up to the top. Just filling each side in. You'll want to be kind of careful too to leave just a little bit of grass space between each bush. That way there's a little bit of differentiation and it's not too thick. Okay, so using the 1st color in the 2nd row, we're going to place a little bit of color on the top here. Actually, let's do the middle one on that side, and the 3rd one right here. And then let's grab the 4th color in the 1st row. Put that right there. That way we get a little bit of differentiation. Then I'm going to take the eraser, and we're going to erase that right there. Create a little bit of a harder edge. In case that happens to you, feel free to use the eraser tool to get rid of that. So we're going to go switch back to the damp brush. Let's go to like 4% size. 58% or so opacity, and we're going to lightly blend this out. Just lightly going in, still using circular motions, scrubbing motions to kind of just create a little bit of texture in there. And we want to leave each of the corners still a little bit dark, kind of creating an ombre up to the top, and then repeat the same on this side. And lightly around the edges, blend that out. Here it'll be a little bit harder, so we may have to put a little bit more depth back in, and actually I may blend those up just a little bit. Let's get rid of this, move this up just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to turn this layer off just so we can see it a little bit better, and I already like the way those are looking. So next I'm going to add another new layer. I'm going to use water pen again, and let's grab this. Actually, yes, let's grab this green right here. That is the third color in the first row. I'm going to put just a little bit of this highlight over top. And what we're going to do, you'll see here in just a second. Since this is on a different layer, I'm just going to turn this down just a little bit. That way it's just on the top. And then I'm going to merge this down into the bushes. And then I'm going to take the damp brush again, and we're going to lightly fluff the top of this new green, and we're going to kind of drag it down and blend it into the greens we just used. Kind of the same way we create clouds. Kind of a similar shape, only in green. And if a little bit of the fence peeks through a little bit too, that actually will help it look a little bit more realistic. So this creates a cool little effect. And just repeat this for this one down here. Then we're going to repeat the process on the other side. And we have reached another painting break, friends, so if you need to pause and stretch and relax for a moment, please feel free to do so, or to continue with the tutorial. And if you need a little bit more right here, I'm actually just going to color drop that. Oops, did not do that. Let's just minimally add a little bit more right through there too. So feel free if you need to add. I would color drop it. Don't do what I did and just lay a giant blob of it down. Thankfully, with digital painting, we can remove it a lot more easily. If it was real paint, that would be a pain in the butt. Which is, when that happens, I remember that is why I switched over to digital painting and have not really looked back. I miss it a little bit, and I thought about picking back up some watercolors. I bought a watercolor set that I wasn't a huge fan of. It I don't even remember what brand it was, but the color, instead of making things darker with more washes, it just made it more opaque, and it looked a little bit more like gouache. It wasn't like studio quality. It was just I don't know what the word for it is. It's like student quality. It was just kind of, they were cheap, and they weren't cheap, but they weren't the greatest either. So I think if I get some more, I'm going to invest in some better paints. But that's in another world where I don't have 1,000 other hobbies taking up time. I don't know about you guys, but like, painting is my main hobby. However, I feel like I have 1,000 different hobbies. And then right around here on the edges, we're just going to kind of blend that up circularly. Just kind of creating some texture right in there. Okay. So I'm going to add a new layer. We're going to put this layer in overlay. I'm going to grab this white color again, the 5th color in the first row. We're going to put this over the top. We're going to add just a little bit of definition to each bush. Put a little bit right there, a little bit right here. Kind of scatter it just a little bit. And this is just going to add a little bit more color into what we just created. So I'm going to take this layer, we're going to turn it down. Let's turn it to like 33% or so. And then we are going to merge this down and we're going to blend it out. Repeating the same layer, the same process across the board. I think I want to do a video on creating bushes as well. I've got a video on creating pine trees, easy pine trees coming, so I'm excited for that. I just have to finish it, but it is recorded. Just blending this out. And you see it creates so many different tones in this bush, colors that we didn't even originally have in our palette, which is really cool. Cool little effect here. Then I'm going to, let's drop this down just a little bit, if that should happen. If it gets a little out of control, we just need the hedge trimmers, which in our case is the eraser tool, to trim it down just a little bit. Perfect. And you kind of want to do towards the upper, you want to leave a little bit of this dark color right like through here, there. And you can take the lighter color and kind of, just like the grass, create little flicking strokes into that dark area. That way it creates a little bit more realism. And then we're just going to repeat this same process over here. Creates so much dimension in these bushes already, with not a whole lot of work, and we don't need a super huge palette of colors. We can kind of still paint, and that was one of the first things that I started doing. I'm going to drag this color too. We're going to create a little bit more right there. There we go. When I first started doing digital painting, I really wanted to find a program that would let me paint similarly to how I was painting with oils and acrylics, and I feel like with certain brushes you can really get a very more realistic looking paint effect, which is what I really enjoy. So this has been a huge, I absolutely love doing this. It's so much fun. Okay, so once you're happy with the bushes that you have, what we're going to do, I'm going to add a new layer. This is another tedious part, so I am sorry ahead. We're going to drop this to like 3% size, and I'm going to color drop, just like the trees. We're going to add some detailed dots to indicate some leaves. And you can color drop different areas to get different tones within the bush, preferably keeping the lightest colors on the top. So like here. And you can kind of tap some leaves into that darker area, which will be really cool looking. And then if there's any like areas that are too solid, you can kind of add some leaves to it, and it kind of helps blend it in a little bit better too, which is kind of cool. And then repeating the process over here. We want to leave just enough peeking through of the original, and we're just creating smaller details now. Whoops. Actually, no, I kind of like it. Let's leave it. We're going to drag some of this grass color, which is where transparencies become really fun. So you can create your highlight color without having to go in and actually pick the color from the color wheel, which is really cool. It kind of allows all of the colors to play together really nicely. Okay, so we're going to take our blending brush. Let's go to like 7% size. Let's drop the opacity down to like 33% or so. And we're going to lightly blend over those new dots just with a really light hand. We don't want to get rid of all the texture. We just want to hide some of our paint strokes that are a little more obvious. Kind of just helps marry all those textures together. Perfect. So we're going to create some flowers. I'm going to put our trace layer back on. I'm going to add a new layer. Using the water pen, we're going to go to like 5% size or so. Grabbing this dark periwinkle blue, that is the second color in the third row. We are going to start creating our lavender. We're going to just dot it on. You kind of want to go just like, I'm going to do this just for example. I'm kind of making this kind of shape, only like really tight. I'm not just like making straight lines. I'll get rid of that real quick. But I wanted to show you that just a little more exaggerated out. That way you could see it up close and kind of see what I'm doing. But I'm doing that real close together. And I'm kind of doing all of these with a slight bend in them as well. Don't want to do anything too just straight up and down. Here, I'm going to put that a little bit closer. And you'll kind of want to leave just occasionally. They're going to get smaller as they get up to the top. So if they're a little further spaced, like up at the top, that is perfectly fine. Here, we're going to put some little dots on there. Do another one that's a little bit closer together. I'm going to get rid of this. See how that looks. Perfect. I think that's actually too big. So we're going to shrink that down and move it up just a little bit. So if yours are too big, you can always move them up, which I like. About right there. We're going to grab this third color in the third row. Going to make it even smaller to 4%. And we're going to create some more detail highlights, allowing just a little bit of that original blue to peek through. It'll create a very cute little lavender flower for us. Just repeating the same technique as we did before, just with a slightly smaller brush. And actually, I think I'm going to create another one of just this color. Put that right there. Nope, we're going to get rid of that one. Don't like that one. Okay, we're going to take a slightly smaller brush, make it like 3%. We're going to grab the fourth color in the third row, the slightest color, and we're going to make, with a very light hand, some detail. Actually, that is too light. So I decided to change colors just a little bit here. We're actually going to grab this new color that is the fifth color in the fourth row, but you guys are actually going to have that color. So I just changed my mind, which is part of the painting process. I just didn't want it that bright yet. So we're going to create just some smaller detail highlights over top. This is floating out there. Floating lavender, probably not something you really want to see. Not really sure what that means, but maybe it's like space lavender. Space flowers. Ooh, that would be fun. Ooh, I've got an idea for a painting. Okay, well, sometimes the happy little accidents lead to more happy little accidents. So that is, oh, I'm excited now. We're gonna create another, actually, I want another one. Like right there. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna zoom back. I'm actually just gonna make a copy of this flower layer. We're gonna put it back here. I'm gonna kind of turn it up just a little bit. I'm gonna make it just a little bit bigger too. I'm going to put these two flower layers together. I'm going to add a new layer, and we're gonna take this new layer and put it underneath of them. I'm going to put this layer in overlay again. We're going to pick that same bright white color. I'm going to create just a little bit more highlight. Let's use the water pen real quick. I'm going to put that on here, here, on there. We're just kind of placing them sporadically. Just ever so softly. Let's put a little bit right in there too. A little bit right there. We're going to turn this down. And then we're going to actually blend this out just a little bit. On the layer it's in, we don't need to merge them down yet. Put a little bit more right there. And you can kind of do this to however much you like. We're creating more of a detail, focus, highlight. Actually want a little bit more on this one too. And that one. So I'm going to create another new layer. Now we're going to switch back over to the damp brush. And that layer is on top of the one we just made. And I'm going to further color drop just a couple more detail leaves. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, like 90% opacity. We're going to create some smaller detail leaves over top. We're taking these midtones and dropping them into the other areas as well. That way we kind of get a color continuity in some of the other bushes as well. I'm going to drop that over here. Just kind of repeating the same tapping shapes as before, just a little bit lighter. And then we're going to repeat the same over here. Kind of just putting some of those highlight colors on some of the other bushes as well. Kind of creates a fun little effect that all of the highlights are similar in tone and all of the bushes look like they belong in the same scene. So I'm going to take a slightly bigger brush, like 7% size. Let's drop it to like 28% or so opacity. And we're going to just lightly blend these out. Repeat the same step on the other side. Kind of just marrying those textures together. So we're going to put some flowers on some of the other bushes. So I'm going to zoom up here. I'm going to take our damp brush, like 2-3% size or so. And then we're going to take this dark purple color here. That is the 5th color in the 3rd row. And we're going to create some flowers over top of our bushes. Now most of the flowers are going to be centered more on the top of the bush. Flowers are going to be centered on the top of the flower. They're going to be more on the top of the bush and a little bit more sparse as we get down a little bit closer to the bottom. I want to show you guys a really fun little technique here. We don't want, kind of the same, that thing that we did with the leaves, just very lightly blending those out. So I'm going to take the hue and saturation, and we're going to turn those down just a little bit. I'm going to take our blur tool, large brush, like 8%, 7-8%. Let's go down to like 25% opacity, and we're going to lightly blend that into our image. I'm going to take a new layer with that same color that we're still using. Oops. Let's go back to an appropriate size. As you can see, we now have a highlight and a low light that are in the same family of color, and we didn't have to put that in our palette, which is really cool. Kind of creates a lot of really pretty depth in there, and I'm going to create just a little bit more down there. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to merge these two layers together, and actually I think for the sake of our wrists and hands today, because there's a lot of repetition in this painting, we are going to just make a copy of this layer. I'm going to drag this down. We're going to flip this up just a little bit. I'm going to change the shade. So we're going to bring this up to like 61% or so and drag the saturation down like 41%. And then I'm going to color grab this darker pink, and we're going to just add a couple more new dots. That way it kind of differentiates. I don't know where that person came from. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of this pink flower layer because I really like it. We're going to flip it, put it over here. Actually, I kind of like it up against that blue. Oh, yes. Yeah, we're going to put it there. I'm going to make another copy of that pink layer. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to flip this up just a little bit. We're going to change the hue of this one just a little bit too. Let's make it a little bit more red. Yeah. I'm going to make a copy of this purple layer. We're going to flip it. I'm actually going to stick it underneath of those blue flowers, which is why I really love to work in layers. I'm going to stick that about right there and then leave that back bush green because I kind of like that a little bit. We may add a little bit of greenery too. So I'm just going to make a couple more detail dots just to kind of make it a little bit different than what it was. We have the base of our painting created. I'm going to create make sure our copy canvas layer, the trace layer is off. We're going to create a copy canvas to work off of. We're going to take the soft light. We're going to take the color black. That's the first color in the first row. We're going to use the soft airbrush. And I'm going to, actually, let's turn that on first and foremost. And draw a deep U around the edges here. I'm gonna blur that to about 26% or so. I'm gonna drag the opacity back down to like 49% so it's not crazy. I'm gonna add a new layer. We're gonna go to hard light, still using black. I'm just going to put this just on, oops, actually a little too thick right there. We're going to put this just on the edges there, real thin. Oops, helps if you don't hit that wrong button. And then we're going to blur it out again. Let's blur it to like 32%. Then we're going to turn the opacity of that layer down to like 24%. Perfect. We're going to add a new layer. We're going to put it into overlay. We're going to switch back over to the bright yellow white highlight color. That's the 5th color in the first row. We're going to switch over to the light pen. I'm going to go to like 19% size or so. And we're going to draw just a couple of light rays over across our image. You'll want to start like real thin up at the top and press slightly harder as it goes down. It'll create a really pretty highlight. And then we're going to blur this highlight. Let's blur it to like 23% or so. We're going to create a copy of this layer. Now the bottom layer, we're going to blur it again. Let's blur it to like 15% or so. This top layer now, which is going to be the detail layer, let's bring it down to like 16%, and that creates a really, actually, let's do just a little bit more. creates a really diffused highlight. So about 22%, we're going to merge those two layers together. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. Okay, so once you get that turned down, we're going to do another copy canvas layer. I'm going to paste it. We're going to create another copy of it, so there's two of them. We're going to put the top one into black and white. Going to create another new layer, put it into soft light. Then with the damp brush, about 4% size or so, 70% opacity, we're going to, actually, let's do like 6% size. We're going to sketch in some detail lighting here, which is going to make a huge difference when we turn the black and white off. We're going to put a little bit more color in the center of and the bottom of our trees and bushes. I'm gonna put a little bit more right here. I'm gonna turn this down like 33% or so. Actually, let's do a little bit more. Let's do like 48%. And we're going to lightly lay some texture over top of the whole painting. Adding areas of new visual interest to our piece. Let's put a little bit more. Let's almost shadow this area just a little bit. We're going to kind of draw this in on this side, and then put a little bit right here, a little bit down here, just along the edges. And then down here, we're just kind of softening that up. Then I'm going to take the blur brush. Actually, let's take the opacity up just a little bit. Let's slightly blend that out. Well, you can see how much depth that added already, which is crazy. I love it. We're going to just lightly soften some of these areas up, and the colors overlapping too will just help to add little areas of visual interest throughout the piece. So it's not all just too similar. And we're just going to lightly blend that out just a little bit. Now, I'm going to turn this layer down just a little bit. I'm going to turn the black and white off. Oh, yes. Yeah, that adds quite a bit. So I'm going to turn the black and white on again. We're going to do another new layer, only we're going to put this one into overlay. We're going to use the fifth color in the first row again. I'm going to take the soft airbrush. We're going to create some focus highlights. Right. It's going to look a little weird until we put it into color again, but I promise you it'll look pretty cool. I'm going to put it on here. Let's do right there. Just anywhere the light is touching. I'm going to put a little bit on here. Let's put a little bit on the garden gate as well. I'm going to take our damp brush, 3% size. We're going to lay just a little bit on our grass area. Dragging it down over the bars here. And we'll fix it if it is too much here in just a second. I'll put a little bit on here. Kind of just dragging that down. Okay, I'm going to take our damp brush again with the blending brush. Take it to like 7% size, 65% or so opacity. And we're going to lightly just blend over top of that. Here we want everything really diffused, so you don't want to see any hard lines. We're going to go back in and add just probably another layer or two of detail highlights, and we are almost done. I am so proud of you, friend. I hope you're enjoying this piece so far. I find painting gardens so relaxing and so much fun. It truly is creating your own world, and every time you do it, it's going to be different and special. I like to throw little touches of my own life. I absolutely love cardinals. We've got a lot of cardinals in our area around our house, so I've been wanting to put one in a painting for a while. I'm gonna lightly blend over that. If it becomes too, sorry, I couldn't get my words out. If it becomes too harsh, just turn the opacity down just a little bit. I'll blend that out here. If it's over the bars, like I'm gonna zoom up here. So if that drives you crazy, you can always kind of go up and down on the bars just to soften that up just a little bit further, but nothing too crazy. And then I'm gonna turn this off. Oh yeah, you can see how big a difference that made. Okay, so I'm going to create some more detail highlights here. We're gonna do a copy canvas and paste. We're going to come up here. So in this we're going to create a new layer. Still using damp brush. We'll go down to like 3% size or so. Do like 77% or so opacity. We're going to grab some of this new highlight color and start dragging it down. Kind of like before, grabbing different tones, mid-tones, and as we get lower down on the tree, the highlights will get to be not quite as bright. Then we're going to repeat the process, just kind of putting highlights over the bush. And your leaf placement may take a little bit of practice. It may take just a little bit of trying and failing to get the way you want them to look. It just kind of have to be sporadic and kind of let the pencil kind of tap in random places. Nothing too overly controlled. And here, so we're going to create this little cool effect in here. I'm going to color drop the sky. Make that a little bit smaller. We're going to drop the sky color through here so we get a little bit of transparency from the tree into the background, which is a really cool little effect. Kind of just finding anywhere that's like super solid like this right here, and we're going in and adding detailed dots to it. Kind of break it up just a little bit. Oops, that's what happens when they're too bright. Moving that down a little bit. That would be my kitty jingling again. She is curled up beside me. We're going to lightly blend that out. Just lightly softening those new highlights. And the effect is minimal, but you can definitely see the areas that we blend together. It really helps to kind of marry those textures together, which you'll hear me saying a lot, especially in this one. I feel like in every video that I record, there are different like phrases that I say more of than in other videos, and I don't know why that is. So if you create content and have ever experienced that, let me know. Because there'll be like certain words and phrases that I become super hyper aware of for some reason, which probably sounds crazy, but okay, I'm going to create a new layer. We're going to repeat the same thing to these down here. What I'm going to do, small brush, and just actually a little bit bigger than this. But yeah, there we go. We're going to just drag some detail leaves from this lighter color down into shadows. Really create some fun little depth right through here. We're going to come over here, repeat the same thing. We're going to lightly blend these new areas out. We're going to add a new layer. I'm going to put it into overlay. We're going to grab this color. That is the fifth color, our highlight color again. with the damp brush, like 2% size, 80% or so opacity. We're going to lightly just touch the tops of our hills with, because this will be the area that the light is really hitting. Here. And then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to lightly blend what we just created out just minimally. Perfect. We're going to take some down here. I'm actually going to put some in there as well. Drag just a little bit of that highlight color onto that flower bush and onto that one. We're going to lightly blend that layer out as well. And I'm not so worried about the texture of the gate staying. Just make sure you lightly blend it away. It'll kind of just disguise itself, especially up close. There's not going to be anything weird, which is why I like to use these a lot, this creates a lot of highlight down there in the front. So in a new layer, I'm going to take overlay, and I'm going to take the soft airbrush. We're going to use the same highlight color, and I'm going to lay down some color over this top part of the painting, I think is what I was trying to say. We're going to take Gaussian blur, and blur it to about 55%. Then I'm going to take our opacity and turn it down to about 44% or so. Okay, so in a new layer, we're going to put that into overlay again using the light pen. I'm going to shrink that to like 19% size. With a very light hand, we're going to create some detail light rays in the background. And I feel like there's going to be one right there, one right there. We're going to blur this out to like 23% or so. We're going to make a copy of it. We're going to blur that out just a little bit more, like 9%. We'll take the top layer, take the opacity down to like 22%. We're going to merge them down again, just like we did before. Take it to about 56% opacity. I'm going to create a copy canvas of this. We're going to come up here. This area got a little too harsh. That was my own fault, but we can definitely fix it. Take it to like 2% size, 27% or so opacity. Actually, let's do like 46%. Nope, just kidding. We're going to go to like 50%. And I'm going to lightly blend, create some new grass strokes, just softening that edge up just a little bit. So if that happens in your own painting, know that you can fix it. I would just make a copy canvas of it, so that way you're working on one layer again, and one like right here. Me throwing my eye pencil, sorry about that. Oops. Nope, not that. We're going to create some new detail grass. So dragging some of this dark green into the brighter green is going to create some more fun little detail areas. I'm going to create some more detail grass right in there, softening that up just a little bit further. I feel like our bird's name today is Henry. I don't know why, but I feel like his name is Henry. Or if you have a better name, actually, if you paint this, I would love to know what you decide to name your bird. So I'm going to come in here. This is going to be a subtle little thing. I'm going to make this about 2%. We'll make it about 65%. I'm going to add some grass strokes over the gate here to kind of merge the textures together because the gate's not going to be quite as solid. So I just want to make that, oh, much better. We're going to add some more detail grass right here. Perfect. Let's put a little bit of detail grass over top of our stones. Go in here. We're going to add just a little bit more in there. I feel like that's just a little too harsh. Right? That's harshing my vibe, man. So let's blend that out. Ooh, okay. Guys, I'm going to get a little bit, you're probably like, stop with the details. And I'm like, more details, all the details. Let's do another layer and overlay, still using that same white color. Let's add just a little bit more right in there. Let's drag that right in there. And then right in here. Let's drag that over that area too. Let's highlight our bird just a little bit as well, so that way he's got a little bit more color. I'm going to put a little bit of color going this direction, so that way it kind of really exaggerates that light ray. I'm going to make a bigger brush, blendy brush, about 10% size. I'm going to lightly blend that away. Actually, let's get rid of that. Now with the blending brush, I'm going to lightly blend out what we just did. I feel like that's a little harsh right there, so I'm going to merge that down. I'm going to just kind of blend those areas together. Okay, I feel like let's add another new layer. There would be just a little bit more highlight on this tree right here. Yep, and right in there. Right on that edge too. Gonna lightly blend that out. Let's add a new layer. I'm going to color grab that highlight. I'm going to add just a little bit. Let's blend that out. Okay, so in another new layer, just in normal, I'm going to put another little strip of black around the sides. This is going to help draw in the vignette just a little bit more. We're going to blur this out. I'm going to drop the opacity just to like 19% or so. And we're done, which leaves the last thing for us left to do is to sign our work. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you recreate this painting and are on Instagram, I would absolutely love to see it, so please tag me at TimStarStudio. So if you have any questions or if you enjoyed this video and like this kind of content, I invite you to please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps my channel out. And if you're still in a painting mood, I have a couple of other tutorials that you might like up on my channel, so go check those out, and I'll see you in the next video, friend. Happy painting!